I want to talk about one early failure in the land of AI, AI land, and one potential early success. It's still, too early to call, but there's some very positive signs that I want to talk about.
Okay.
All right, and more importantly, what we can all learn from them.
Hey there, sexy techies.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to .coms and Hot Moms, the podcast where entrepreneurs discover their next startup idea.
Yes, we have a tagline, sounds like. We want people to know why the fuck they're listening to us.
Yeah, I mean, the podcasts evolve over time, and that's always sort of been what we're doing. We just didn't really say it.
Yes. So I think by saying it out loud, it makes it official. And so that's what we're doing.
All right. So if this is your first time joining us, we talk about startup stories, technology, and business trends on this show. And the goal is to share great content and insight. That's where we come in. But also, we like to make it entertaining.
Yes, we do. For sure.
As you can tell.
Yeah, I'm so entertaining right now.
I'd like to say we're bringing sexy back to startups.
Oh, yes. So sexy.
So if this sounds like your kind of thing, whether it's your first time or your 20th time, I think this is our 20th episode.
Yes, thank you.
Hit the subscribe button, join in, and follow along.
Absolutely. Yes, and let's bring sexy back to tech.
To startups.
Darn it.
To everything.
To everything. Yeah. Sexy.
We're just bringing
everything.
sexy back. So speaking of sexy, you may notice May's voice sounds a little different today.
Yeah. Again, if this is your first time listening, this is not what I normally sound like. I don't always have like voice fry and like an incredible like smoker's voice. I just came back from a week-long work trip.
Extravaganza.
Yeah, where my coworkers work hard yet also play hard. So I'm kind of on recovery from that. But thank you for still tuning in, even though I sound like your grandmother.
But this is what we're all about on .coms and Hot Moms. Like we don't take a week off. It's going to take more than a little cold to keep us out.
Exactly. I love doing this with you.
Oh.
And I'm sure everyone also loves listening. So we're not going to ever stop.
They wouldn't be here, right?
Exactly. And
if you hear some weird moaning today, our dog is like, I cleaned his ears, but he is shaking them like crazy, and he insists on laying right next to us while we do this podcast. So he is shaking and moaning and just annoying the hell out of us right now.
No.
So
honestly, I think he wants to be close to us. I missed him, so he probably missed me and wants to be here.
I'm sure that's it.
Moaning. So
all right, so let's get into it. We talked in the first episode of season 2 about, actually you talked about generative AI.
I did. I'm so smart.
Yes, you are. And I mentioned how I thought 2024 would be the year that we start to learn which AI startups are going to make it, like which ones have some meat on them, and like will be successful in developing something that where like there's a big enough market, and we'll start to find out which ones won't, and which ones will fail.
Yeah, make it or break it. That's what this segment will be called.
So it's happened faster than I expected. I have one example in each camp that I want to talk about today.
Okay.
And they both came out within the last couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Sucks for that one.
Yeah, and the one it sucks for is the one I'm going to start with.
Okay.
So I want to talk about one early failure in the land of AI, AI land, and one potential early success. It's still, too early to call, but there's some very positive signs that I want to talk about.
Okay.
All right, and more importantly, what we can all learn from them.
Yes, I love learning.
I love lamp.
I love podcast.
All right, May. So do you remember in season 1, I think it was episode number 8, when we talked about Instagram?
Yeah.
When I mentioned to you that Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger were working on a new project called Artifact?
Yes, I do. Only because you wouldn't really go into what it was, and I tried to guess what Artifact was.
Yeah, you took a guess. I wouldn't say it was a bad guess. It was way off of what it actually was.
For
It was
sure
kind
wasn't
of
great.
I don't remember what it was, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
So Artifact is or was an AI news app.
Okay. I do not think that's what I guessed.
No, it wasn't close.
Okay.
So news came out that it is shutting down just a couple days ago, and they've only been live for a year. So they launched in January 2023.
Oh, wow. Did they post that in Artifact?
It's not, probably. It's not where I saw it. So it sounds like you haven't used it before.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know what that
Okay,
is.
so I've used it. I've actually used it for the last few months, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the episode. So the team, before they launched in early 2023, they spent a little over a year building it out. And it was self-funded by the founders. So Kevin and Mike, made a lot of money selling Instagram to Facebook. And so they invested, what I've heard is in this what they said was in the single digit millions. I think it's around $5 million into the company.
Yeah.
Change. Chump change for them. Yeah, sure. So their differentiator is that they use AI to curate news articles for their users.
Okay.
All right. So their core functionality, and this is a explanation like from the internet, is Artifact is a news aggregator that uses machine learning to make personalized recommendations based on topics, news sources, and authors that the reader is interested in.
Okay.
Okay. So how it works, I'm remembering back a few months because this is when I started. Is after you download the app, it asks you to choose some topics that you're interested in. It shows you a bunch of articles. I think you read the ones that you're interested in. You click on the ones that you're interested in. Over time, it sort of gets an idea of who you are and what you're into, and starts showing you more content like that using AI.
Okay. Interesting.
So there's other apps that do that without using AI.
I was just going to say, isn't that kind of like how people thought that like maybe a media could be an echo chamber for people because they only like read, media that pertains to like their typically like political affiliation and their political views. And so that was what was kind of like wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think that can definitely be a criticism of apps like Artifact. I typically read a lot about technology and startups, and like it's whatever you want to see on the app. So like that's kind of what I wanted to use it for.
Okay.
Just to try it out and see like what kind of articles it would present to me. So it wasn't very polarizing stuff for me, but I'm sure for some people, especially if you wanted to read all about politics on it, you're probably going to see a lot of the politics that you want to hear.
Right. And how is this different, or like what made this a better idea than the targeted articles that pop up in your Facebook news feed?
Yeah. So you're getting ahead of yourself a little bit. So, but that's a very good question. Let's table it.
Okay.
And we'll come back.
Yeah. I call it the parking lot.
Okay. We'll put it in the parking lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a poster board, like a whiteboard or something?
Stickies.
Okay. So, some of the other features of Artifact. So in addition to reading articles, the app offers the ability to like articles, leave comments, or listen to an audio version of articles read by AI-generated voices.
Oh.
Included simulated voices of people like Snoop Dogg.
Okay, I love this.
Or Gwyneth Paltrow, for example.
That in and of itself just sold me on it.
Okay. Well, you should have been a user earlier because you're too late.
Darn it.
AI is also used. Now, this is, I think, a slightly more useful use case, even though you loved that one. AI is also used to rewrite clickbaity headlines. So if users flag headlines as like clickbait for certain articles, they use AI to rewrite it based on reading the article and giving it a title that actually makes sense.
Okay.
So like, if a headline was like the biggest thing that the worst thing you're doing at the gym and how to fix it or something like that, and they might rewrite it as like the importance of having and sticking to a workout plan or,
Yeah.
you know, something like that,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
actually what the article is about.
Right.
And then you can decide, do I want to read this or not?
I like that too.
Yeah. So that's a feature. They realized, you know, midway somewhere in the last year that like, they didn't have the traction that they wanted, right? So they tried to change some things. They tried to make it more into like a social network, give it more social like features.
Interesting.
Kind of like a Twitter or a Threads. Users could like post links and add like user generated content to Artifact.
Yeah.
Images and text, and then they could be commented on by other users. What do you think? So like, I mean, you sound kind of into these features that they added.
Yeah, like read to me, Snoop. Like I mean, I love listening to audiobooks, and the voices that like read the audiobooks are pretty awesome. And I think I would love to get my news read to me as well in an interesting way. So I really like that piece of it.
So I agree. I mean, I think they sound kind of cool, right? Like they sound like cool features, like just the idea of Snoop reading articles to you. Or, I mean, it's not really Snoop. It's a voice trained to sound like it's AI Snoop, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm guessing he gets some sort of royalties or something from this, but I don't actually know how that works. That seems kind of like a gimmick, though, right? Like maybe like a launch strategy, like, you know, like to gain some hype, right? Like they've got Gwyneth Paltrow and Snoop reading articles. Like that sounds cool, but like I don't know that I'd want Snoop to read all of my news. You know, it'd be kind of weird. Also,
yeah, I guess.
The clickbaity headlines thing, that's kind of cool. Like you do sometimes waste time like going into articles to find out what they're talking about and then realizing like it's not interesting at all.
Yeah.
They just wanted you in there so you could click on their ads.
Right.
But like to me, it seems like some of those other features, especially like trying to make it social, that sort of thing, is like adding features for the sake of adding features, right? Like it's not the core thing, which is like, we're going to make a product that is better at giving you the news that you're going to be interested in, and we're going to use AI to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And they're not features that solve a fundamental problem that users are experiencing that stops them from like fully utilizing that app.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's almost like somebody said like, you know what would be cool? Or like, you know how we could get users onto the app is like, you know, with these sort of marketing strategies. They're more like marketing things.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Or things that like, you know, this is kind of a problem that like people have about the clickbaity headlines. That's sort of like nobody likes that stuff, right? But I like to think about it like this. So like if they aren't going to use your AI news app because of its core functionality, will any of these other things cause them to want to use it long term?
Right.
So like will listening to Snoop Dogg make me an avid user of your app?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the basic necessity of having a voice read an article to you in an engaging way, so not just like a robot reading it, is what appealed to me. Yeah, it's not necessarily Snoop.
Yeah.
That's cool, but because I know that like I don't always have time to just like sit down and read, and so I want to get my news I was going to say orally, but that's not right. Audibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, maybe that was an experiment they wanted to try. I think one of the problems with it is people like to skim their news.
Oh,
and you can't really skim when you're listening.
For sure. Yep.
So, you know, I think there were some problems there, but like I was thinking about this and I was sort of contrasting it to the Instagram story. So Instagram was initially intended to be an app that made it simple to share photos with the world, right? With your friends and with the world.
Yeah.
And at the suggestion of Kevin's girlfriend, they added filters.
Right.
Because remember, she said she wouldn't want to use it and share her own filters or her own photos because she didn't think they looked very good.
Yep.
And one of their friends, you know, made his pictures look great because he had this other photo sharing app or photo filtering app that he used.
Right.
And that's a feature that adds value. And that's a feature that makes people more likely to use your app in the way that you intend it to.
Yeah.
Because because, they want to share pictures that look good.
Right. Right.
And now videos that look good. Right. Filters are it's a simple concept, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. And now that Instagram's added even more filters, like they are capitalizing on what made them successful to begin with. And I think that's a good, smart business move too.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I've been a user of Artifact. I've used it. I don't know. I've probably used it for the past 6 months or so. But it hasn't formed into a habit for me. And the reason that I know that, and the reason that I kind of knew that they were in trouble, or sort of had this like suspicion that they were in trouble, is they have this kind of gimmicky feature that tells you, like, your streak is about to end. Open the Artifact app.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like, you've got a 3-day streak going. You're about to lose it. Open the Artifact app to keep it going. And it's like, you shouldn't need to tell somebody to use your app because of a streak, because like they're going to miss out on a streak. Like, what does a streak matter to me if I've used your app for the last 4 days? I'm not getting anything, like having that streak keep going doesn't do me any good as the end user.
Right.
Like, you need to get people coming back to your app because they want to be coming back to your app, or because, if you were giving me notifications, like activity notifications, and that got me back into your app,
right?
That's great. Like, you're telling me, something's happening in the world that I care about, and that brings me back into your app.
That should have been it.
But don't tell me like my streak's about to end. That just tells me you haven't been able to enforce the habit, and you're trying anything. You're sort of like grasping at straws to try and like make it happen.
Right. No, that's so true. The whole concept of like keeping a streak alive is very like photo driven, or like, because they have that in Snapchat.
Yeah, and it's like a gamification thing.
Yeah. The only other like place that would work are workout apps, because you have, it's mostly for people who've made resolutions to like work out every day or something, or a meal tracking app, something where you want to habitually be doing things. Now, there are people who make resolutions to be more knowledgeable in the news, which I feel like a notification like that about streaks would be helpful. But just putting out a blatant notification about your streak, ending when that's not your actual end game it doesn't feel individualized or special.
Yeah.
And so if they had different push notifications, based on, maybe that was part of the questionnaire when you set up, what you want to get out of this app. And just with any app, really, like, even if there is a way to see, like, why are you using this app? What do you want to get out of it? And then curate different push notifications for that. I think that might even just like help drive traffic back to using any app, not just this one.
Yeah. So it was clear to me, like, they didn't have a sticky product. They were trying to figure it out, and in the end, they couldn't. But that's sort of the crazy thing about startups to me, is like, you've got these two guys, Kevin and Mike, right? They were much better founders when they founded Artifact than they were when they founded Instagram.
Yeah.
Way more experienced founders. They were better programmers, better at hiring. This was a pretty small team. I think they only had like 8 people on the team. And they failed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they couldn't identify beforehand that the market they were entering was not going to be big enough, or that they weren't going to attract enough users. Nobody has a crystal ball, even if you've done this before.
Right.
They added features that were not likely to fundamentally change user behavior in the product, in like an interesting or insightful way. And, I don't fault them for that. Like, that happens. It's very easy to do. And, you often don't know that beforehand.
Right.
Like, if one of those things did work, then you could make a completely different case.
Right.
It's easy for us to say in hindsight that like they were, not the best ideas.
Yeah.
But it's a common trap that founders fall into. Even some of the best founders, is it just needs this one more feature.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I just build this one more feature, that's going to make things click. That'll make it work for our users. That'll bring in, that'll create the snowball effect that we need.
And sometimes I feel like the original concept of a new startup or a new app or something has a specific demographic in mind, but when they keep adding these other features, that maybe were successful for other apps or, other companies, it's not necessarily targeted for the original
Yeah.
demographic. It has a success story. Like, you're looking at, the success rate of, doing something this way is great, but you also have to keep in mind about the original demographic that you're targeting.
Yeah. It's like it sort of creates confusion about what you are. Like if I try
Yeah.
to explain what Artifact is now, I'd be like, well, it's an AI news curation app, but it also it also has like AI voice reading by like Snoop Dogg, and it lets you like and comment on articles, and it lets you, it's like
Yeah,
and.
right.
But like, those things are just different. It's not like the example we gave with Instagram. It's still a photo sharing app, and it lets you filter, but that helps your photos look better.
Right.
Like that, it's sort of more cohesive. It
Right.
doesn't make it confusing
Yeah.
about
right.
why you would use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, this all gets back to the fact that building a successful startup is a very difficult thing to do.
Yes. Right.
These people they're worth billions of dollars, right? Collectively.
Right.
But that's not and they've done this before, right? And that's not enough, right? Like you can be skilled at building, and you can prove that you've done it before. You need the timing to be right for your product. You have to have the right idea, and be able to iterate on it when things aren't working out correctly. And you need a lot of luck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think the best decision that the Artifact founders made was? Like the best thing that the Artifact founders did for this project?
Close.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I'm just totally kidding, but
No, like they shut it down very fast.
Right. Okay, I see where you're going. Yes. Yeah.
So they realized it wasn't working. They put out a statement. They said, we could have kept this thing going, but we realized the market's not big enough. We couldn't attract enough users.
Right.
That is really hard to do.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen often enough. They could have let this drag on for a couple more years. They could have put more of their own money into it. They probably could have they definitely could have raised VC funding, because VCs are throwing, both like their names, like their name recognition, what they've done before, but also it's an AI startup, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not easy to raise VC funding right now, not as easy as it has been in the past, but like for AI, you can do it.
Yeah. Right.
And they didn't do that, right? Like they realized that this isn't working. Their time is going to be better spent on something different.
Right. Yeah. And that is true though. That's a very like admirable thing for them to do, because you see with a lot of startup founders, just in general, like their like if you were to probably like give them personality assessments, I bet a lot of them have really big egos that seeing shutting down a project or seeing something, fail is a huge bruise to their ego. So they will hold on to it until, it dies not in their control.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, especially, I mean, if they've had a big success in the past, it's easy to feel like, well, I don't want that. I don't want to seem like a one-trick pony, right? Like I don't want, but you have to know you have plenty of other opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Like in their situation, the best thing that they could do was either to completely pivot, right? And like, if they thought, we have the right team to do something else, we're just going to completely pivot the company, or shut it down and start something completely different.
Right.
And I think that's what they're going to do. They're still excited about building things. They'll probably find something else. They're excited about AI. And so they'll, likely find a different idea and go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish them the best.
Yeah, same here. So, we covered the failure. Now I want to talk about a cool story that AI has made possible in the field of medicine and antibiotics specifically.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is, in the last episode, I was kind of talking about, trends that I see are going to be successful in 2024, and like health and wellness and medicine advancements were definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned on maybe a couple episodes that you were in nursing.
Yes.
You were a nursing major when you started college.
Yes. Short stint, but yes.
Yeah. And, just by living in this world, you probably know what MRSA is, right?
Yes. Yep.
So MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
Staph infection.
I might have aureus. I'm not sure how to say that last word. Yeah, it's a type of staph infection.
Yeah.
It's a drug-resistant bacteria that infects over 80,000 Americans each year and kills over 10,000 of them.
I know. So scary.
In the U.S. alone. So it's estimated that 1.2 million people died in 2019 from drug-resistant bacteria in general around the world.
That's so crazy. I remember the first time I learned what MRSA was. It was in high school, and because there was like this big like outbreak of like MRSA cases because people weren't disinfecting the wrestling mats.
Oh yeah.
And it made me so like OCD about like any yoga mat, wrestling mat, like exercise equipment that I ever touched to disinfect it. I know that you can get it anywhere, but
well, I wish more people would have that reaction. Yeah, I mean it's fairly common for hospitals to deal with it as well.
True, right?
But what's interesting is that most antibiotics that we are using clinically today were developed or discovered in the 1960s.
Wow.
So hardly any have been developed over the last 60 years.
Wow. And bacteria just keeps developing.
Right. Keeps morphing, evolving.
Yeah. Trying to take over the world.
So using AI, a group of MIT scientists and researchers were able to train a very specialized LLM or large language model to try and make predictions about whether certain new chemicals might have antibacterial activity.
That's awesome.
So I listened to one of these scientists describe it, and they said, without AI, it's sort of like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right.
It's like there are millions and millions of possible combinations of these compounds to test through.
Yeah.
And humans cannot possibly do that in many, many, many lifetimes. Right. Like to go through all of that. So what they did is they took this training data set that they generated by testing about 39,000 compounds for antibiotic activity against MRSA. And then they fed the data that they came up with, plus information on like the chemical structures of the compounds into this LLM, this large language model, with the goal being to try and identify patterns and promising compounds. The interesting thing is, are you familiar with the board game Go? Have you ever heard of it, Go? It's common in like tech circles, but it's a board game.
No, I was thinking sorry.
Okay. So Go is the most complex board game that there is. There are thought to be vastly more possible positions in the board game.
Yeah, this is so not in mine.
Than there are atoms in the entire universe.
Why is this fun?
No, I mean, I don't know. Some people like this kind of stuff, but
Okay.
So they use the same deep learning model that was used to beat the best human player in Go.
Yeah.
It's called AlphaGo.
Oh my gosh.
So they used it to identify these compounds, that might have positive results and antibiotic activity against MRSA. And then they went out and they bought close to 300 compounds that, the AI said, might have a good shot, right? That they had predicted would have high antibiotic activity. And one other very important criteria is that they would also have low toxicity to humans.
Yeah, that's clutch.
Yeah, it's clutch. You don't want to give us anything, like bleach could maybe kill some bacteria.
Totally. Yeah, it could also kill us.
Yeah. And the other criteria is that they were structurally distinct from current antibiotics, right? Like they didn't want to reinvent the wheel,
Right.
And create something that wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And then they had to test it.
Yeah.
So that, they got these 300 or so compounds and they created them. And what do you think they used to test on?
Oh, I just immediately assumed rats.
Yeah, mice, rats, right? Like it's always the mice.
Those poor mice.
Those poor little mice. So the first test, not so bad. They tested by scraping off some skin from the mice and applying a cream to it with the antibiotic on it. So like a skin
topical
infection.
cream.
Yeah, topical cream. The second was more systemic. They actually infected the mice with the MRSA, and then they tested the antibiotics. And they found a candidate that proved very effective at treating MRSA in both experiments.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so with the mice.
Yeah.
Which is really, really exciting, right?
Yeah,
like we've had scientists and researchers at this for 60 plus years, and we
Yeah.
haven't had hardly any advancements in this field.
Right.
And they started working on this a year ago with this AI, and we're already at this point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and the reason that I said early on that this is a promising development is it still needs to go through trials, right?
Right.
Like it still needs to go through clinical trials, human clinical trials. And AI can't really help with that part right now, right? Like can't speed that part up. We still need to do, especially with regulations, and
Right.
like there's rules and regulations on how drugs have to get to market,
Yeah,
right? Antibiotics and that sort of stuff too. Where AI is very helpful is identifying these compounds that might be useful in drug discovery and doing it a lot faster than humans can.
Yeah. So like the tests and the trials and all that, it's still going to take time, but like getting to the point of like what to test really is sped up, and which is awesome.
Yeah. So another key piece of this study is now researchers are able to, there's some transparency into why the AI made the decisions that it did and chose the compounds that it did.
Okay.
So they can see into that and pull out that information. And now they can use that in their own research as
Yeah.
well. It's not like it just said, here, try
Right.
these 300.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they can actually see what it was that made the AI choose those,
Yeah.
which can be really useful to them.
Yeah, which is what everyone keeps saying is like the benefit of AI. It doesn't just like take over what people are doing. It complements what people are able to do, which I think is like very important to always remember when you're thinking of like how to utilize AI or what AI can eventually become in our world.
Yeah. I mean, and this is one of the things that I think AI is going to be really helpful with. And this is one of the things that's really exciting to me. And these are the areas where like the things that humans are very bad at or we haven't been successful at, right?
Or slow at, not necessarily bad.
I mean, slow is bad when it comes, when you need to save lives and,
Okay,
it takes
sure.
you decades, right? And you're not doing it.
Yeah, it's just
You're
not
doing
a
good
positive
job.
word.
I mean, we should admit that humans are bad at certain
There's
things.
areas of
right?
opportunity.
You hate saying that people are bad at anything. But AI will be instrumental in
Sure.
discovering cures for many diseases
know.
where, that have plagued humans, and also animals. Cancer,
Yeah.
just thinking like MS, ALS,
Yeah.
heart disease, which we talked about
Yes.
on a previous episode.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things like just thinking about ideas, right? Like that I don't know if people are how AI is being used for this yet, but just thinking of areas where I know that there have been areas of opportunity humans could do a better job at.
Yeah.
Thinking, staying with medicine, like every year researchers and scientists have to predict which flu variants, which influenza
I was
variants
just thinking
to include in the flu shot, right?
Yes.
And they look at data from the southern hemisphere. If you're in the northern hemisphere, they look at different factors, and then they make a guess,
Right.
and they throw a few different types of the flu in there into the
I know.
vaccine.
The flu
and-
vaccine's like pretty much all a guess.
yeah, and then you end up reading afterwards. It's like, well, they did a pretty good job this year.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
it had like 60%, 70% efficacy.
Yeah.
Or, they really missed the board on this one. Like it was only
Oh my God,
10%
Zika?
effective.
What?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just happens. Like maybe AI will be,
I
helpful
thought
and-
about that.
yeah. I mean, some other areas I'm thinking of where humans, speaking of predictions, where humans are just not great, right, at making predictions. One is weather.
Oh, yep.
Like-
yep. oh my gosh, hurricanes, is it going to hit us or not?
Yeah, where's that hurricane gonna go?
Yeah.
Or I mean, even if it's gonna rain, like you know, like I swear it says 0% chance of rain and it is raining outside, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
see it the other way. It's always like, oh no, this like event's gonna happen or this wedding and it says it's gonna rain and like you always have like a really like scared bride or scared client or something and then it ends up not raining and then you're like, oh, it's great. But then yeah, I would have loved to not have that like, you know, anxiety attack beforehand.
yeah. Another possible use for AI is where humans are very bad, and it's been demonstrated over the last couple of years, is economic outlook or predicting recessions, right? Like, I don't know how many articles I read about big investment banks predicting, you know, 90% chance of recession in 2023, early 2024. Now things are looking brighter, you know, and they change course and it's, well, no, now, you know, we're going to have a soft landing. There's not going to be a recession. And it's like, well, how many, like, do we believe you this time? Because
Right.
we believed you last time. And
Yeah. Totally get that like forecasting that is like, you know, really hard to land.
oh yeah, for sure.
However, the difference between the former two that you discussed and this one is that like this is a lot more like behavioral driven, like behavioral based driven, whereas the other two are very much like strict science.
Yeah, no, this is different.
Yeah.
But I think that AI could be useful here.
You think for
Yeah.
like behavior because okay. I don't know.
I mean, it will look at past recessions, you know,
Yeah.
what the economic activity was like in those past recessions, what the Fed did, what the housing market was
Yeah.
like, you know, all this stuff we can learn from the past.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, we may try it out and realize, no, AI can't really help us there. All right, lastly though,
Okay.
last thing,
Yeah.
elections.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
If the last couple of election cycles have taught us anything, it's that
People are mean.
yes, okay. But regarding predicting the outcome of elections, we are very, very bad at it, especially when our electorate is
Yeah.
so close.
Yeah.
Um,
So true.
Polling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Polling has been really, really bad.
True.
Predicting, you know, the outcome, also the turnout, predicting
Yeah.
turnout, who's going to show up to vote. You know, we'll see if AI is better. I'm sure AI is being used in this election cycle. If it's not, it's just a missed opportunity. Also, where to spend money, right? Where to spend ad money. AI should be able to help us with that because sometimes it's just a guess. You know, you're just throwing.
Yeah.
These candidates raise millions and millions of dollars, and they just throw it at
Right.
you know where
Yeah.
throw it against the
That's-
wall.
I feel like that is a more valuable way to utilize AI when it comes to like the election and like process rather than forecasting who's going to win because that's like the whole point of like voting and the actual outcome is like what happens. Like no one can predict what's going to happen. Not even AI.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. But I do like the idea of like, yeah, where to put your like marketing and ad money when you're working in a campaign. I think that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Very enlightening. We'll see, you know, what ends up taking off. But like, hopefully our listeners, like if anyone's like thinking of, you know, doing a startup and maybe utilizing AI, maybe this was helpful for them.
I hope so. Yeah, and I think to me I hope what people take away from this segment is that AI has some really great use cases,
Absolutely.
and there are going to be some areas where we try AI and we find out, you know, AI didn't really help with that, or like AI, we shouldn't use AI for that. Some of those things we're not going to know until we try it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
some of those things, you know, we can use logic and reasoning to say, yeah, we probably don't need AI there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I think, I hope, like you said, I hope this segment gave people some ideas, especially people who are interested in AI, or if you're not, you know, maybe now you are.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now I want to talk about highlighting a company. So we kind of talked about a company that just like wanted to put in all of this like new stuff and all this new change like right away, but then it you know, really deterred from their original like need, right? Earlier.
Artifact.
Yes, that's
Okay.
wasn't that long ago. But now I kind of want to highlight a company where change was needed, and it happened. I mean, it took a while before it happened, but and it became really successful. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe just last week, a week and a half ago, probably, my social media news feed was blowing up with so much content around this pink Stanley Cup. Have you heard of the Stanley Cup?
Me. I have heard of the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
I got you a Stanley for Christmas.
You sure did. And it is here in this video. If you are watching on YouTube, this is the beautiful Stanley that my awesome husband gave me. It's the 40 ouncer rose gold.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost enough water for your entire day.
Yes, it is, which I love because I'm a very dehydrated person. But so this is my first Stanley. You just popped my Stanley cherry, so thank you.
You're welcome.
But this craze has been going on for a couple of years now. It's still, I'd say, a fairly new craze. But there was this new Stanley that came out. Stanley had partnered with Starbucks for a Stanley by Starbucks limited edition cup that was being sold at Target. And I just said like the three most basic white girl things that you could possibly ever like hear: Stanley, Starbucks, and Target. Very trendy, trending companies.
I wouldn't know.
I hit those places up a lot. So, this cup was like flying off the shelves, and I was like, we talk about trendsetters a lot. And I was like, we really need to highlight the Stanley Company. And the more I kind of read about it, the more like interesting it was. And so I kind of want to talk about the Stanley Company and how they started.
Awesome.
Okay.
I don't know much about Stanley. I know they've been around a long time.
Oh, a long time. I had no idea. They started in 1913.
Wow.
They are like over 100 years old.
Yep.
Carry the one. Okay. So William Stanley is his name. He invented a steel vacuum sealed bottle in 1913. And in the century since, his vacuum bottle evolved from concept to icon. And it's like an essential part of work days, road trips, and outdoor adventures. The company historically targeted workmen. It was the drinking vessel for workmen and those participating in like outdoor activities like camping and hiking.
Okay.
And as recently as 2012, Stanley had mentioned that their tagline was that their products resonated with a 30-year career veteran policeman or a retired Army soldier. So looking at my rose gold Stanley right here with a lipstick stain on the straw, can you see like a veteran policeman or an Army soldier carrying one of these?
No, I'm guessing something changed about the Stanley.
Absolutely. So enter these three fabulous women: Lindley Hutchinson, Ashley Lissauer, and Taylor Cannon.
Did you say Lindley?
I said Lindley. Yes, I did.
Is that one name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chickenly. Sorry. So these three women are the founders of The Buy Guide, which is an online shopping blog and Instagram account that started in 2017. So they were early lovers of the Stanley Quencher. So that's what that's what this viral Stanley is called. Stanley makes other cups and products, but it's the Quencher that has gone viral. So the Quencher comes in various sizes. It comes in the 40 ounce and the 30 ounce style. Those are the two more popular ones. You gave me the 40 ounce because I'm dry as fuck and I need hydration.
Yeah, but I didn't. When I bought it, I was like, "That's pretty big. I hope this is the one that she wants," because I mean, it's enormous.
For sure.
It's larger than your both of our monitors. Like here, it's big. Just for some perspective.
But okay, but what I love about it, and I saw this on like TikTok and all the viral things, is that you can hold a whole can of High Noon in it, which is exactly what I'm drinking in it right now. And I don't know, like if you've been watching our YouTube channel, every time I take a sip, I forget that there's a High Noon in here, and my face is like, oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, that's it's big enough for that. So But it is still slim enough on the bottom that it can fit into your cup holder. The 40 and 30 ounce styles, are priced between 35, 50, depending on like if it's a limited edition, it can go up to $75. It can keep your drinks hot for 5 to 7 hours and cold for 9 to 11 hours. And again, it fits in your cup holder, which is a huge draw for something, a vessel this size.
Yeah.
So that's why these 3 women loved it so much. The buy guide's following is 97.7% women, with the highest demographic being women aged 35 to 44. So it was just their second Instagram post in 2017 featuring the 40-ounce tumbler with a simple caption that said, "Of all the insulated cups, this is the one, just trust." But because the quencher wasn't actually the priority of, Stanley's marketing, they had it, but it wasn't something that they were, producing in large amounts or anything like that. It was becoming like harder to find in stock. And, these women thought that maybe there was like a risk of it being discontinued just because like, as it gained momentum and popularity, people started buying it and then it started like going out of stock and they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to discontinue it. So, they were telling their followers, like, hurry, get your hands on any cup you can find. We heard that it's going away. Please reach out to Stanley. Tell them that you don't want it to go away. And we love this cup so much. And that was all that was needed to like really skyrocket the selling of this cup. Stanley had never partnered with influencers or done any like affiliate marketing before. So
yeah, that sounds like what happens in Florida when there's a hurricane. Like
buy all the water.
Yeah, it's the water, the toilet paper,
Yes,
and the
the
paper
toilet
towels
paper.
or something. Like,
I
paper
know.
goods. It's like, you got to go get it.
I know. And then you can like never find it. So
You're going to need to go to Costco and get 90 rolls.
all the toilet paper. And then after the hurricane passes, everyone's like, I have so much toilet paper.
Yeah, it's like, how long did I think I was going to be in my house without, like, how much toilet paper
Like,
can you
why
go
did
through?
I need all this toilet paper? So Stanley started, like getting people contacting them being like, don't get rid of this cup and all this. And they were like, well, it's not going anywhere. But, if you want it, they had told, these women that like just place a wholesale order with a minimum quantity of 10,000 cups and you can sell it, and we'll produce it, we'll give it and you can sell it. So it's a huge risk at first for, the group and to do their first and only wholesale partnership with Stanley. And they quickly like set up a website, they got a warehouse, they needed to like quickly figure out logistics for like shipping to consumers. And of those 10,000 cups, the first 5,000 sold out in about 4 days. And then the next 5,000 sold out in an hour.
Wow.
So it was huge. And so instead of like brushing off this sudden surge in sales from like an unexpected audience, Stanley was going through like a leadership transition change. Stanley's new global president, his name is Terrence Riley. He has a strong marketing background. He decided that they should just go all in on this new female audience. So the ladies at the Buy Guide met with Stanley's leadership at the Outdoor Retailers Conference and really showed them what it would look like if women could market to women. So, Stanley was a company that only produced occasional use items, right? Like just for camping trips or for tailgating.
So that's a huge shift in strategy for them.
Absolutely. Like these 3 women were basically like, let's make this cup a daily use item where, it would look good on people's homes and like change the colors to match people's like kitchens and their outfits and not just for like the great outdoors.
I can imagine that was met with, some resistance. I mean, luckily, I guess they were going through that leadership transition that you were talking about because, I mean, this was a company that had been around for over 100 years.
Yes.
They were very set in their ways. I'm sure they had it was like, no, this is our target customer. Like that's a distraction, right? Like that could have been viewed as a distraction.
Absolutely. And a lot of brands do that. They like see this big surge and they're like, okay, well, whatever. That's just like a blip in the radar. But, never underestimate the power of women influence, especially on social media. And so they went with it. They launched brand new colors that were like pastels and colorful, like, and they still have like the army, and now actually the army green one is like a coveted color that people want because it's kind of like vintage
Oh.
for them. They started doing collaborations with influencers and other, popular brands like Starbucks. Lainey Wilson she's a, famous country artist. They kind of, glom on to collaborations with really trendy celebrities and brands. And then they also do like affiliate marketing that opens up new audiences. Again, like Lainey Wilson, it opened up to like the country music world and like, country fans for the Stanley. And doing it with influencers really opened up their audience to connect with consumers like more directly with the brand rather than just like the old school general marketing that they used to do. So not only did they really like change their look and focus on one of their products, there's now this trend where like collecting Stanleys is becoming super trendy with like influencers showcasing their cabinets filled with like a myriad of like rainbow colored Stanleys.
Oh my God. Don't get any ideas. We don't have.
No.
I mean,
No, I actually,
we have,
this is so classic. I like this one.
I know you like to collect cups and mugs and things
Don't
like that
to.
too.
I'm just giving them.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to make some room if we're working on a collection.
I'm not, famous last words. I'm not going to start collecting Stanleys. But like the whole like thought of like people collecting things, experts say that since the pandemic, research around material culture has shown an uptick in people collecting things. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting because I think we're also in a stage where people are trying to get rid of a lot of their personal possessions.
Yeah.
And especially younger folks, they're prioritizing travel, being able to move around more easily
true.
and not owning a lot of things.
Yeah. Right.
There was that book that was really popular several years ago about like joy, bringing, get rid of anything that doesn't bring you joy.
Yes. Yes.
So I think there's a clash there, but that's interesting to know that people are sort of starting to collect things again. I mean, baseball cards are on the upswing too. Yeah, it's very, since COVID, collecting that sort of stuff has become more popular again.
Well, that's what they're saying. It really did start with COVID, and maybe there's going to be a turn where like minimalism, like, really is coming back. But because people were in isolation, they found that they were like discovering small joys that they found in their day to day because they were just like, stranded at home and they can order, things and start collecting them. The need to collect, coupled with the rise of hydration, health, and wellness, like coming out of the pandemic, is the perfect equation for collecting Stanleys and the success with releasing these limited edition Stanleys. So what they're finding is that a brand or a product that will really resonate with consumers is when they have the perfect combination of addressing the technical, functional, and emotional needs of the consumer. And apparently that's exactly what Stanley does. They are functional in terms of they can give you all the hydration you need, yet still fit in your cup holder.
Yep. They're technical. They can keep it cold.
Exactly.
Right? They're made out of the right material.
Yeah,
What's the emotional component here?
Because influencers are the one pushing it, people have more of an emotional connection with influencers, with other people telling them, like, it's more relatable rather than walking and seeing a poster of like a beautiful model that you don't really know because you don't follow them from day to day, telling you to buy like these jeans or this cup. But when you actually see somebody, you know their name, you're following them on Instagram or TikTok, and they're like, listen, I just tested out all of these cups and this is the cup for you. You have this emotional connection with this person and you kind of trust them. So that's what they did. And now they like have all these wait lists of thousands of women, and they sell out for every new launch that they do. And that's why this last craze, the Stanley by Starbucks, sold at Target and being pink, it was huge. So what, they capitalize on the tactic around drops, kind of like a scene in like the sneaker culture when like a new design drops.
Yeah,
A
for the
lot,
sneakerheads.
yeah. And that's the other thing with
Stanley heads.
with
Are there Stanley? This
sure. Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe it is. Hashtag Stanley heads. But that is a thing also when it comes to the culture of collectors, is that people collect things with the idea that someday it'll be nostalgic. Like I'm going to look at the color rose gold someday and be like, oh, like that brings back like this nostalgia in me, or this, these big Stanleys were like super nostalgic. They also, capitalize on the promotional strategy around the FOMO culture. If you don't, if you're not one of the ones that has the pink Stanley, you're missing out. I don't think I'm missing out, but like I know that like collectors do when they don't have something. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then partnering with, like I said, partnering with other really trendy brands like Target and Starbucks for their special edition drops is another tactic that they used. So by the end of 2023, Stanley had seen a 275% year over year increase in the Quencher sales and has become the number one drinkware brand in North America. They're projected to hit $750 million in sales. So talk about a success story of a brand of drinkware. Sometimes you can have a winning product in your back pocket. You just need to get in front of the right audience. And it's awesome that, Stanley, like an over 100-year-old like brand that's rooted in American history, there's now going to be multiple generations that have created this emotional connection to the brand. So, grandfathers that have gone fishing, taking their Stanleys with them, or job sites with Stanleys, to people in the 21st century, and connecting with today's consumer. So Stanley continues to be a consumer-first company and ensures that customer demand, feedback, and insights are what's driving the products and the brand that the brand brings to the market. So I also kind of wanted to talk about how powerful TikTok is for buying decisions. We kind of talked about how influencers now are creating this emotional trust with their followers, and that's huge in marketing and in sales with brands. So when you think about trends, like when we were in high school, let's say, it's a slower acquisition of a trend being picked up. So like maybe on the first day of school, you see like somebody wearing like, a Hollister like sweatshirt or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really until like people go to the mall and like see that sweatshirt like, on the mannequin. And then maybe until like the end of the school year where then everyone starts wearing that Hollister sweatshirt. Marketing relied more on images and posters and storefront signage then. But because of TikTok and like the instantaneous delivery from Amazon,
Yeah.
virality happens like almost overnight with trends. So one of the things that one of the women in the buy guide was saying that it's really smart for like any brand to market to 25 to 50-year-old women. Like if you are a company that is not focusing your marketing on 25 to 50-year-old women, you're really missing the mark. Because even if you're like a men's clothing company or like a tech company,
Yeah, there's a lot of spending power there.
absolutely. They are the buyers of this economy. They're the ones buying for themselves. They're the ones buying for their husbands. They're the ones buying the gifts that their husbands are giving to other people, most likely.
Maybe even themselves.
Yeah, and they buy, right. Oh, I'm so surprised you gave me this Stanley. And they're also buying for their own businesses too, because, most women are business owners as well. So they are the people that you want to connect with. And when you can get an influencer or a content creator to collaborate with your brand, women also trust women more. It's not like a man mansplaining why a cup is great for a woman. They hear it from, their own peers. And so it's really a great target audience and a great marketing strategy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we can't end this segment without me mentioning this question or asking this question. So we're going to find out if this is a fad or if this is, a like there's a fine line, right? Or I mean, maybe there's not, but like you have your fads and then you have, like you said, you called it a trend.
Yeah.
But if it is a trend, that means that the trend will end sometime, right? We will see if Stanley is able to maintain, what did you say, $750 million in revenue?
Yeah.
I mean, maintain or grow that revenue for the long term, right? Like there's not any defensibility here outside of, the brand, which is brands are powerful, but there's nothing stopping another company from, designing a nicer looking, also functional, also emotionally connected product that does this sort of thing and takes away a lot of their market share. And maybe Stanley becomes last year's trend, right? And then not that they'll go away, but like, maybe they'll drastically shrink in revenue at some point.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with consumer goods sometimes. Like, and they go through cycles too, right? Just like fashion.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this goes. I think, partnering with influencers, partnering with Starbucks, doing these sort of limited edition things, I think it helps it to last longer.
Yeah.
I don't know, like you compared it to sneakerheads. I have a hard time seeing Stanley becoming the same type of, like they're becoming this same sort of like secondary market for Stanleys as there is for like sneakers. That lasts as long as the sneaker craze has. That is a huge business.
Yeah.
And it's lasted for decades. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. We'll see. I don't know.
I think the drinkware craze will last longer than specifically the quencher trend or craze. And I think because Stanley is a smart company that continues to work off of customer feedback, that they're going to be continually create things that are going to stay on trend, whether it's still a quencher or not. I think we're going to hear the name Stanley for a while, this is my prediction, because they're going to either market like something else that's going to be a Stanley, that's the next best thing. I agree with you though. There's already a lot of like imitation Stanleys out there that are more leak proof or, more lighter in weight or easier to clean, this, that, and the other thing. There's always going to be something wrong with a product, but because Stanley listens to their audience and they have such a brand following, I think Stanley as a company is going to be really great unless, a scandal breaks out or something. We hear of something, but even just like the starting story of Stanley is something that a lot of people I feel like can connect to. The fact that their grandfather might have owned a Stanley or, their veteran uncle has a Stanley. I think it's something that connects multiple generations, and that's what makes this company great.
Last time I checked, I'm still hot, real hot.
All right, so talking about influencers, content creators, and how they can really just like boost the market for any brand. It was kind of just like this open, like I can pick any like content creator that will fit in with our Hot Mom of the Week. So I'm going to highlight one of my favorite ones that I've been following for a while. Her name is Katie Beach. Her handle is the Katie Beach on all social media platforms. And she is just your typical lifestyle content creator. What, caught my attention to her and what made me start following her was she had some funny posts. The one that I remember was she talks about the millennial dance face.
What's that?
So apparently if you're a millennial woman and you're like really like vibing in the club, you make this like one frowny face, like I don't even know. Like you just like get really into it, and then you make this like millennial like frowny face, like when you're dancing. So I was like, oh, totally me. I hit follow, and earlier on when I was following her, her bio just said like I'm in my hot mom era, but now she became a little bit more real. And her bio says toddler mom, pregnant and thriving-ish.
Oh, that's funny. On Instagram, it says she's 16 weeks. So she's 16 weeks pregnant. So she's like keeping up with this week to week.
Yeah.
Must set like a calendar reminder or something.
Yeah. So, she does like post a lot about just like her everyday things that like she goes through, but she also promotes a lot of brands. So she has linked, her Amazon page, her LTK shop. Do you know what that is? LTK?
I do not.
Oh, so I know about it because there used to just be an Instagram account called LTK, like to know. It's called, like to know it. And if they, show a model with like clothes on or whatever, and you like the post, or a model without clothes.
Yes.
Okay. But if they show like, an outfit or something and you like the post, it'll send you links on where to buy that. And so it was called Like to Know. And so now everyone just kind of has an LTK shop. It's become an app for discovering products styled by your favorite influencers now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sounds cool. It's not my thing. I'm not in the demographic for it, but
Right.
I bet there are millions of people who are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also influencers now have an Amazon page. I don't know if you know that, but like all of the things that they promote or do, you can click on their Amazon link and they have like Amazon lists curated for, like either household items or white elephant gifts under $15, and you can look at all of
some
these
of them,
things.
yeah, and some use them for wish lists too, right? That like their fans or followers can buy for them.
Yep, absolutely. I was just gonna say she has a baby registry list. I don't know if it's her actual baby registry list or if it is a suggested one because she's pregnant and women trust other women, and so like if she registers for it, most likely other people will want to buy it or register for it as well. So, she has the branding partnership tactic that we've kind of talked about. So that's kind of why I wanted to highlight her.
Cool.
Yeah. So follow her on
Katie Beach.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Usually I'll say what her handle is, but why don't you go ahead? Follow her on all social media platforms, right, Tony?
Yeah, the Katie Beach on all social media platforms. Well, that's all we've got today. If you enjoyed the episode, hit the subscribe button.
And reach out on social media.
.coms
And Hot Moms.
signing off.